Good evening. My name is Derek Mitchell Jr., and I'm a director in the JT and Margaret Talkington Department of Student Athlete Development here in Texas Tech Athletics. I would like to thank you for joining the fifth installment of our Hidden Figures series in recognition of Black History Month, sponsored by the Texas Tech Red Raider Way, our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging initiative. The theme for Black History Month in 2022 is health and wellness. So we wanted to engage in a conversation with a few highly respected doctors in the Lubbock community. So at this time, we'll go ahead and kick off the night by allowing each of you to introduce yourself by sharing your name, where you're from, and then briefly tell us a little bit about your journey to become a healthcare professional. So we'll start to our left and make our way to our right.
Good evening, Derek. Thanks for having me. My name is Joshua Hill. I'm born and reared right here in Lubbock, Texas. My journey to becoming a health professional started at Xavier University in New Orleans, where I did my undergraduate. And then I came home to Texas Tech and went to medical school. And then I did my residency at Memorial Hermann in Sugar Land, Texas.
Okay. Very nice to meet you. Thank you.
I'm Felicia Powell, and I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, so a long ways from home. My journey started with military experience, which brought me to Reese Air Force Base at the time, and I worked my way from Texas Tech all the way from undergraduate through PhD in the Marriage and Family Therapy program.
Okay. Very nice to meet you, Dr. Powell.
My full name is Gaston Rougeau Burns. Most people call me Dr. RV. I work with a lot of little kids, a lot of families. I'm a clinical psychologist here in Lubbock, Texas. So kind of by way of all over. I grew up in Houston, grew up in Laredo, grew up in Corpus Christi. I went to Baylor University for undergrad, majored in neuroscience, how the brain works with the body, stuff like that. I then got my master's in marriage and family therapy from my grad program in Springfield, Missouri called the Forrest Institute of Professional Psychology. And then I got my doctoral degree from the same place. So I'm kind of like the glue guy for everybody. I do a lot of therapy. I do evaluations for our foster kids and for other kids in the Lubbock community, and really just trying to help make sure that I bring all the pieces together to help us get the services that we need.
I like it. Well traveled, Dr. RB. I like it.
My name's Christina Bell Henry. Dr. Christina Bell Henry, and I am a OBGYN. I'm obstetrics and gynecologist here in the community. I grew up in San Diego, California, and we moved to Dallas when I was in 8th grade. But I think I really got my start. My uncle was a pediatrician in San Diego, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I had 8 boy cousins that came before me, and then I came, and they would play football with their friends, and my grandfather was like, "You're gonna get hurt," so I was the infirmary person, so I patched up everybody's wounds and everything. I went to Prairie View A&M for undergrad, University of South Alabama for medical school, and came to Texas Tech for residency.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you all, and we really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this. I would like to propose a question to the whole entire group, and it would just be, what does Black History Month mean to you? So, Dr. Bell Henry, if you want to start, we'll go back around.
Black History Month means just remembering all the people that came before us and paved the way, and just to remember the heroes and the struggles that they had to go through so that we could be where we are today.
So, Dr. RB, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Gotcha. So we have this saying in my family where we say that a people without knowledge of their past is like a tree without roots. And so when I think of Black History Month, I think of acknowledging our ancestors, the shoulders who we sit upon, who we stand upon, people that allowed us to be here. And so it's about honoring that and making sure that we pass that spirit forward.
100%. Dr. Powell?
For me, it is acknowledging and remembering the struggles and the adversities that past Black African Americans went through, while also celebrating contributions that they made and contributions that are continuing to be made by African Americans today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Black History Month is very special to me, of course. I think the biggest thing about Black History Month for me is just revisiting all of the important events and all the trials and tribulations that our ancestors had to go through since the inception of America, and relearning that and revisiting it and celebrating it, and really trying to dig deep and get the good, the bad, the ugly, and use that to create a better way forward for our community.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree with all of you all's statements. Black History Month is just a very intentional time that we can take a deeper dive into what our history is, learning about all the great contributions that Black people have made to American history, but also the sacrifices that have come for us to be in the positions that we are today. So really appreciate that. This question will be for Dr. Hill and Dr. Bell Henry. So the American healthcare industry is historically and disproportionately underserved the Black community. How do we collectively work to improve the healthcare system for all people?
The healthcare system has a lot of shortcomings in the past, especially whenever it comes to serving the Black community and all people of color, in all honesty. And I think the first step that we need to as healthcare professionals and as the healthcare industry is to reconcile that, and to actually realize, that we have done things the wrong way for people of color. And once we do that and do that truthfully, we can honestly start moving forward. But as a Black male, as a leader in the Black community, I want us to start investing in our health more and taking it more seriously, and being our own advocates, and really taking time to take care of ourselves, our health, our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health. So to me, I think that's where it starts, but it's a long road.
Thank you. Dr. Bell Henry, I know you're an OBGYN, so you're coming from a different viewpoint.
Well, I do agree with what Dr. Hill said. We have to take our own, and we have to invest in ourselves and our own health. I think it would be helpful if our community organizes more events that encourage wellness, healthy eating, maybe some cooking classes, maybe a garden, like just to encourage just healthy eating. I think there is a trust, like a trust issue because of things that have happened in the past with health and our community, and to increase trust, I just think there's going to have to be more people of African American descent to go into the health field, whether it be nurses, lab technicians, physicians, physical therapists. Just when you have a family member, then people were like, okay, well, maybe we'll go.
Yes. You had me at cooking classes, Dr. Bell Henry. I love that point. And just to add, I think that we can just kind of just go get checked. And so just a shameless plug, Dr. Hill is my primary care physician. So it's just a great opportunity for us to continue to learn and grow and develop in ourselves. So this question will be for Dr. Powell and Dr. RB. So Black mental health is a topic that often doesn't get talked about enough. Why do you think that Black mental health is important, and how do you all recommend Black people take care of their mental health? Dr. Powell, if you'd like to start.
Dr. Powell has notes, so I want to make sure that I give her room. I'm clearing out. I'm going to set you the pick and you can go.
With it. I think it's important because it gives you the lens for which you look out of in your life. It affects your perspective in every aspect of your life. It touches, your mood, your feelings, your behavior, your decision making, which also will then impact parenting skills and whether or not you're able to maintain employment, your social aspects and friends, or whether or not you have the ability to make friends. It touches all of your life aspects. But then when you put Black in front of it, so then we're looking at Black mental health. You're also focusing in on a certain silence breaking trauma and prejudices and injustices that gives a different flavor with all of that. And so those are very hard topics to discuss, because you're looking at those areas that now shine a light on a moment in time and continuation in time that we are not so proud of, and makes one ashamed of how they see themselves, or how they see and how their ancestors are remembered.
Yes.
So then, no, we don't really want to talk about that.
It's a difficult conversation.
It's a very difficult conversation.
And more importantly, we don't even honor it in our history. You know, like we think
sure
of
don't.
we think of Dr. King and Malcolm, and we think of these great things that they did. And you know, it's when I think of could we do that today, or what it would have been like to be in those situations, or ask my grandparents what it was like for them. You know, they just talk about the fear, and they were just like it was scary every day. You know, and we were pushing for change and trying to get to a place that we'd never been before. And just the fact that we don't honor that part of our legacy of just how fearful some of these things have been. And I think that leads to some of this trepidation that we have as a community of saying, let's not talk about it. That as Black men, we're strong. That as our Black women are indestructible, and that we don't feel these things. And I think that it does a disservice to who we are as human beings, and more importantly to the fact that, you know, you can't have those highest heights of joy and striving if you don't have that fear as well that says, hey, I need to get out of this place. And so I think a big part of this, just like Dr. Powell was saying, is being able to honor this, being able to talk about it and have these really important conversations like we're doing today.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. I think what I took from what you all are talking about is it's a totally different conversation. So it's different challenges dating all the way back to our origins. So thank you all for your perspectives on that. I'd like to propose this question to the entire group. So as we all know, COVID-19 is something that we've all been dealing with here this last year and a half to 2 years. What has been the impact of COVID-19 that you've seen on your patients, clients, and just in your own personal lives?
Yeah, I mean, COVID-19 is very unique in a number of different ways. I think one of the ways that it's truly groundbreaking is that it's touched all of us. It's impacted all of us in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And as a primary care physician, I've seen it, I've seen it kill people. I've seen it debilitate people. I've seen it, destroy families. At the same time, I've also seen it bring communities together and help rally people to a cause, to a common goal. I think one of the biggest things that I'll take from this whole pandemic and all the twists and turns and ups and downs that we've had is that, life is precious and it's worth something, and it takes something like a pandemic to put everything in perspective. And I hope that's something a positive that we can take from the pandemic, that all of the death and all the morbidity and mortality and the illness and the sickness, that life is precious and it's worth living, and it's worth living together. That's what I'll take from it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Dr. Powell.
Yes, the way I've seen it affect me and my practice is more so through the lens of I'm the one that is speaking with the individuals who have lost someone or who have been impacted very seriously themselves. And I myself, when COVID first was revealed, contracted that. And so I got a very up close and personal experience with what a lot of the individuals are talking about and the long lasting symptoms that even after you're coming back saying my test is negative. 6 months later, I'm still coughing. I'm still dealing with this long-term effects of the illness. And so in doing so, it has also changed how we do therapy. So teletherapy, right? Because fear and also trying to contain it and not spread it more, doing therapy through computer use, monitors, phones, Zoom, which also makes it very difficult to do therapy in that way because you're not really able to look at the body language. And in our field, body language speaks louder than with your mouth.
Yes. Yes.
It says, it screams what you have not yet stated.
Yes.
And so that means you have to ask more detailed questions. You have to be very purposeful about how you're gaining the information that you're trying to seek to help that individual. And yes, you don't always get the best of that world through teletherapy,
Yeah.
but it has changed it in that way for us.
It's made you adapt, but it doesn't allow you to feel that same energy of a person that comes into your office. So definitely understand that. Dr. RB?
So for COVID, we all found out that we struggle, right? We found out that all of our communities struggle, but we also found out that, when we look at our communities of color, specifically our African American community, that it was disproportionately impactful for us. So not to say that we struggled the most, but then when you looked at the fact that we constituted a higher number of first responder jobs, a higher number of frontline jobs, a higher number of multi-generational housing. So we have people who are living in the same houses as grandparents, as kids, and you look at all these numbers together and you realize that not only are we getting vaccinated at a lower rate and more distrustful of the vaccines, but that we're also getting impacted the most. So it's this really significant double-edged sword where it's like we can't even get a leg up because we're the place where the cure is coming from, we're distrustful of it. And so when you look at combating all these things, it brought all this to the forefront. There was this belief that we lived in this society that was post-racial, that was this utopia. And I think this shined a light and said, we're not there yet. We've got a lot more to go.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely hard from like a medical standpoint. We would run clinic, and then after clinic, we would stay there until about 7:30, doing telemedicine visits with people that were COVID positive. And I mean, there was a lot of fear, and so some of it was counseling, but then just giving them different ideas of things they can do, like zinc, don't lay flat on your back, take an aspirin. I found that, even like some tonic water helped reduce some of their symptoms because it has quinine in it. If they had like respiratory symptoms, send them in like a steroid inhaler. And a lot of people seem to get a lot of symptom reduction. But there was a beautiful part of the pandemic as far as families. I mean, I know it's hard, like homeschooling, but the kids actually got to spend a lot of time with the parents. I had a lot of parents that started doing different projects with their kids, like gardening. They would listen in on the classroom and find out what's being taught, what their kid was lacking. And so, so that was interesting.
Yes, I think the pandemic has made us be as creative as we possibly can, from as simple as having Zoom meetings now to where we used to have to travel to go to meetings. Now we can just jump on the computer, which is kind of a two-sided coin. But also, as you said, it's beautiful parts to it as well. During the pandemic, I personally got to spend the most time with my parents that I have since I was probably in high school. So I know I value that time. I really looked forward to every day I got a chance to see my parents and really get a chance to spend that quality time with them. So, all right, so how can we in the Black community be more proactive in our health and wellness? So you all have talked about some great things, but of course, getting out in front of these things are usually the best way to approach them. So how can we be more proactive?
I want to tie that back into your last question, because you were right. COVID taught us about these barriers to mental health, especially for the Black community. If you're working a 9 to 5 and the clinic's not open that late, it makes it hard to go. And so it taught us that there are these barriers, and let's remove them. And I think the more barriers we remove, especially for our community of African Americans, I think that this makes it much easier for us to get to services. So when we talk about telehealth, I'm seeing patients now from Houston, from Dallas, patients who are like, I'm on my lunch break, I got 45 minutes, but I really want to talk about this childhood trauma that I got going on. And we're able to work through that in a way where they would have said, I'm too busy before, or I can't make it, or this isn't important enough. And now all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, I'm here as long as you need me for whatever it might need to be. And all you got to do is click this link, and you can sit in your truck, you can sit, in the closet at home, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And I think that when we recognize that there's barriers, when we talk about access to both medical and mental health services, and we try to remove those, I think things get a lot better.
Definitely. Sometimes if they can't come to you, you have to take it to them. So, Dr. Powell?
I say start small. Sometimes we jump too big and we take off more than we can chew. So pick 1 or 2 areas that you need to work on, and as you work on it, then add to it. Don't wait until the last minute when you know something's wrong to seek help. Go on ahead and get the examination, or go ahead and make that appointment to speak to someone who can help you move through that thing.
Like Dr. Hill?
Absolutely. I think those are all great points. I think, the way that we need to approach improving health, Black health in general, is number one, by creating better access. I think virtual and technology has opened the door in a lot of ways to do that. I think we also need to improve the representation of providers of color, right? It's no secret that people feel comfortable seeing people or talking to people that look like them, that have a similar background as them, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's something that in medicine in particular, we lack. And especially, in our community, we lack providers of color. And then at the same time, you have to improve quality, right? There's a lot of shortcomings that we have in medicine, and things that we know how to do better and we can do better, but we have to remove those barriers. And so in my mind, I think the way to improve healthcare for the entire community, not just the Black community, but is to improve access, improve representation, and improve the quality of medicine that we provide, so that people trust us and people want to come back, and people see the results, and that's a great segue to keep people, wanting better for their health.
Thank you very much. I definitely agree with you. Personally, I can speak to that. I know when I was looking for a primary care physician, that was definitely one of the things that I was looking for, to see if there was any people of color within the industry in the Lubbock community that I could go see. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Dr. Belhin?
Yeah, and then I'm just gonna get back on. We do have to take personal initiative, but then I think family members can encourage other family members. So if the people that are cooking for the family make half of the plates colorful food, okay? And so I think that, maybe we can have community walks, maybe twice a year, a special something, and then a garden and cooking classes. And maybe if the Y would, have classes at times when people aren't working, but also make it like a family thing, so there is maybe a children's class while the adult class is going on, but short.
Yeah. Well, I think those are some great answers. So as as we talk about being doctors, we know it's a lot of great aspects to it. But what are some of the challenges that come along with the healthcare industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think, just becoming a healthcare professional for everyone has its own unique challenges. I mean, particularly educational. These areas tend to be very, very competitive, as they should be, right? I mean, you want the people that are providing you healthcare to be on the top of their game. So I think there's the educational aspect that makes it really, really difficult. But then, kind of going back to the representation part of it, whenever you're going through medical school or you're going through residency, and going through that is scary and you feel alone on the island, but then to look around and not see people that look like you or that have the same background as you or that maybe, share at least a little bit of culture with you, it puts you on all the more of an island. And, that's something that I struggle with throughout my training in medical school and in residency. And in residency, I was in a very diverse city. But on that professional level, there's just not a lot of people that share, your skin color, your culture, the same interests that you have. And that makes it hard. And that's something that I really think that if we as a medical community can change, things will get a whole lot better in a lot of different ways.
Thank you. Dr. RB?
I mean, when I think about this, I think about kind of the most challenging and the most rewarding thing are kind of the same thing for me, but I kind of find it standing in the gap. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times when patients don't expect a provider of color and you're there for them and they're like, oh, you get it, and you're able to explain these really high level, like medication concepts or psychological concepts, and you're able to say like, hey, here's how this applies to your daily life of what a child with autism might look like or what a child with depression might look like. And we're able to talk about those things and able to kind of bring it from the mountaintop down. Those are the things that I find the most challenging because there's 69 psychologists in Lubbock, and I'm the only African-American one, or the only African-American male one, and there should be 400 of us, And so there's so few of us to do these things, and it's super rewarding when I get the chance to do them. But the hard part is that there's a lot of us.
Yes.
Or there's a lot of people, less of us.
Yes, that makes sense. Dr. Powell?
I'm piggybacking on you with that, especially being an African American female. So, in my area, when I came into the field, already knowing that I was entering into a field that was majority white male, and how can I build credibility for myself as an African American woman in a place where I was not born, where I have no family. I met my husband here and we created our own family, but in terms of extended family, no support, and not really having a lot, like you said, of people that look like you, or having that mentor that looks like you, that you can ask questions to, made it really difficult coming into this field. And then not knowing always the questions to ask, or sometimes people say, well, why didn't you ask, or why didn't you, but sometimes you don't know what questions you should ask. And so having a mentor that looks like you, having that background, it really does help if that's available. That was not available with me. And so here I am standing in the gap for clients who are coming and needing help. And then you're dealing with issues with, we don't have the insurance to cover it, or how are we going to pay for it, or insurance wanting you to give work under diagnosis in order for you to be compensated for helping someone. And that's not my style as a marriage and family therapist with diagnosing. So those type of challenges make it very difficult.
Dr. Bell-Henry?
It is a hard road going through like medical school and getting there. and the testing. I think it started early, just with sports. So I did gymnastics. You know, some people do football, and you're just taught to just keep going, whether you're injured or not. You just keep going forward, and you're going to get there. And so I feel fortunate that even though there was about 2 African American physicians at my medical school, but there were quite a few nurses. So I was in Mobile, Alabama. And when I would hit the floor with the other students that didn't look like me, they would pull me aside and they'd show me things, and they were just so happy that I was there.
Yeah, you want somebody who speaks your same language, who has the cultural competence to understand some of the challenges that you're facing, that you're going through. So we thank you very much for all of you all and what you do. Just kind of wrapping up as one of our final questions. I'm sure it's a lot of young people, young individuals who would love to be, the next primary care physician, the next psychologist, the next OBGYN. What is a bit of advice, or what is something that you would tell a young person aspiring to be in the health and wellness industry?
Just go do it. It's there. You can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. It's possible. And that goes for anything in life. But we need you. We need doctors of color. We need different perspectives. We need different backgrounds. We need all of that. So if there's any interest at all in healthcare, go for it. It's there. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to help people live healthy lives. And so just go for it.
I love that. Dr. Powell?
I would say to understand that working in the healthcare industry is to have a heart of servanthood, and that you are there helping someone else and advocating for someone else who may not be able to advocate for themselves. And that doesn't always match what you think the pay should look like, because we're taught young to go after professions that are going to be lucrative and pay well, because we've come through enough already in hardship. But we are not yet there as African Americans in that same field, getting equality across the board in that way. That is still part of the struggle. But in spite of that, the results that you gain in the end from helping that life reach its goals on the other side of the person that you're helping makes it all the worthwhile. And that a very, very smart man once told me, Felicia, good is not the enemy of great. Sometimes we often will talk ourselves out of stuff because we put in the I'm not good enough, or I'm not, I don't have what it takes, or well, I'm not as smart as you. But give it the best that you got.
I love that. Good is not the enemy of great. I love that. Dr. Arby?
I think the biggest thing I can think of is just finding the thing, whether it's the healthcare profession or not, but I hope it is the healthcare profession, finding the thing that wakes you up in the morning, that makes you passionate. Because we have enough literature now to know that money's not going to change your problems. There's actually an upper threshold that is really low. It's like, I'm not gonna say really low, but it's like between 70 and 90 grand for a household of two is pretty much where your happiness gets the highest. And the more you make after that does not result in you being more happy. And so we know that like these things are fleeting. And so if there's anything that's going to stand the test of time and be the most rewarding, it is going to be that service or whatever it is that wakes you up in the morning that says, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And so I would encourage whoever's listening to find that thing. And I think when we find that thing, a lot of things in our lives fall into place.
I love that. Dr. Bell Henry, would you like to bring us home?
the health field is a great field. If you really enjoy helping people, you can really make a difference. I feel very fortunate to be an obstetrician, so I'm there like every other night. I'm there for the birth of a little person. And it's not just doing the delivery and making sure that mom and baby are safe. It's the interactions with all the family members in the room and how they respond to the new life. And it's very enjoyable. And so I feel very lucky and very blessed to get into medicine, nursing. I would tell all of the young people to really take school seriously, read, and focus on your science classes and practice test-taking skills. Because to get into the profession, any healthcare profession, you have to take a test to get to the next level. So that means you have to get over test anxiety so that you can do your best. So I'd say practice your test-taking skills. My kids, I didn't want them to have test anxiety, so we actually had them doing test questions from first grade. We started off with tax test, and then we were like, it's your job to max out the score, and we would put a bounty on that tax test. And you could make like $100 if you got like the high score. So they were like studying, and they'd wake up in the morning when it was time for a tax test, and they were like, Mom, get ready to pay me. I said, I hope so.
$100,
I
great,
like that.
great
Yes.
incentive. That was great
Yeah.
incentive.
Good
That's great.
reinforcement.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. I got to tell my mom, hey, you should up the price on that.
Well, and my two little people too. I was in residency when they were little, so they were like 18 months and 5 years old. And if my husband was out of town, they had to come with me to the hospital, so they got to see like the whole thing. And they'd round with me, and I'd let them listen to the heart, and sometimes the patients would let them check different things. Anyway, I ended up with two little healthcare providers. So I have a dentist, and he's here. He just moved here. He's with Dr. Simic. So we have another African-American dentist. And then my daughter just finished medical school. So,
That's great.
yeah.
That's great. Well, Dr. Bell Henry, Dr. R.B., Dr. Powell, Dr. Hill, we appreciate not only you participating on our 5th installment of our Hidden Figures for Black History Month, but we also appreciate all the great things that you all do. Being great representatives of not only the black community, but also just great doctors in general. So thank you all. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Hopefully you gather a lot of great insight and learned a lot about the doctors within the Lubbock community and just what it takes to be as these great individuals are. So thank you. Have a great night. Wreck 'em.